This is the circuit shown in figure 3. We have a 12-volt source, R1, R2 connected in series. And then here R3, R4, they are also in series. This branch, that branch, connected in parallel. In other words, R1, R2 together, parallel with R3 and R4 together. And that reflects on our circuit. This red cable connect to the 12-volt source. And then we have R1, R2 connected in series. This resistor R1 across the gap. The other side connect to one side of R2. The other side of R2 connect to ground. And then here, this is 5.6. And there, this is the 10 kilo ohm. R3, R4 connecting series to ground. And then these 2 points of both branches connect together forms the junction point. That point also connect to the source, the 12 volt. If you look at our table 3, we should measure R1 and R2 together, R3, R4 together, and also the total resistance of the circuit. So this is R1 and R2 together. So first, let's disconnect this part of the circuit. Because we only measure here, nothing else. Change our multimeter to the resistor mode. And then measure this side of the resistor or the branch, and then the other side of the branch. This equal to 6.78 kilo ohm. So if we add this up, 4.7 plus 2.2 should be 6.9 kilo ohm, which is pretty close. Let's write it down. 6.78 kilo ohm. Over here. Now, let's disconnect that. And then disconnect the other side of the circuit. We are going to measure the resistance of R3, R4 together. So get the red probe there, the black probe here. We have a 15.33 kilo ohm resistor. So 5.6 kilo ohm R3 and R4 10 kilo ohm together, if you add them up, is about 15.6 kilo ohm. And we have 15.33 kilo ohms. Now we're going to measure the total resistance of the entire circuit. So disconnect the mini grabbers, reset the circuit, and then we're going to measure everything. Connect the 2 terminals. That is about 4.70 kilo ohms. I will put 4.70 kilo ohms. Next, we're going to measure the total current. This requires us to connect the power source. So since we haven't changed the DC power supply yet, it still provides a 12 volts. So we can simply connect the positive terminal here to the red cable, red wire, and then the ground to here. We measure current now. So to measure the current, We are measuring IT. We are going to measure IT, where IT is the current flow out from the DC power supply over here. So we need to measure the current at here right before entering and then splits at the junction point. So I'll disconnect that wire and then make sure this is in the current port. Connect the red probe of the multimeter to here. The black port to here. They connect together. This equals to 2.53 milliamps. milliamps. That's the current in this branch. Now we're gonna measure current go through 1 and 2 this branch, and then current go to 3 and 4, 3 and 4 the other branch. First of all, disconnect the meter, reset the circuit, and then we're gonna open this part of the resistor. Connect the red probe to here. And then the black port to here. Equal to 1.75 milliamps. And then reset the circuit, disconnect the mini grabbers from the circuit, and we're gonna measure this branch. This time, let me open this side of the resistor, connect the red probe there, and then the black probe over here. So the current come out from that resistor, enter to the meter, come out, and then continue flowing to the rest of the circuit, and then return to ground, equal to 0.77 milliamps. Next, we're gonna measure V1, V2, V3, V4. That's the voltage across R1, R2, R3, and R4. So we disconnect the mini grabber from the circuit, reset the circuit, also change here to voltage mode, put this back to the voltage port. We are ready to measure the voltage. So let's begin with V1. V1 is the voltage across R1. This is R1. So put the red probe to the wire closer to the positive terminal. And then the black grabber connect to here. It's 3.79 volts. So you get 3.79 volts across resistor R1, and we call it V1. Let's move to V2, the voltage across R2. .22 volts. And then let's measure V3 and V4. .30 volts. And V4. .70 volts. So I get 4.30 volts for V3, 7.70 volts for V4. Now the measurements part is complete.